And then, as I said on earnings, I think it was the last question from Bill. He was like, "Hey, any Hypertruck Innovation Council members?" And it just happened the night before. We got that first one from an Innovation Council member, Green Path Logistics, and we announced that a couple of days later. So.
Did you like my little my
your little YouTube video that you put out there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't own any gold chains like that, so I got to work on that.
So I think this one sort of got answered, but for the for the community and those tuning in, it got answered today as I was able to get in these vehicles. We saw the software and the hardware, the tablet set up with shout out to Drive Mix Game. He's works at Detmar.
Oh, okay.
And so he's got a channel, and he's been showing some of the hybrid stuff. And so I was. The question is, is there differences in the software on board in the vehicle between the hybrid and the Hypertruck ERX?
Yeah, there absolutely is. There's a lot of difference actually, but we've also tried to carry over the learnings from the hybrid or the software we've written on hybrid into the Hypertruck. But they are very, very different products. Like the hybrid, we passively listen to the vehicle and use that to determine how much power to apply, when to apply torque. Versus the Hypertruck, we are the drive of the vehicle, right? So from a software control standpoint, the Hypertruck is much more expansive and a lot more features included in it. But then, one of the things I had shared with you when we were out on the ride was we're taking modules from hybrid that we developed and carrying them over. So one of the things we developed for hybrid was what we call geozoning. So we actually can, on a map, say, hey, in this area, we want the algorithm to do this or do that. Well, we're going to carry that over into the Hypertruck as well. And what we're actually getting asked from fleets to do is, hey, I want you to put a 3-mile radius around my distribution center. Don't have any tailpipe emissions in that area. Drive on just BEV, right? And so what we're able to do is when we get into that zone, turn the generator off when we're in the community, have it be silent, have it be no tailpipe emissions, make the delivery, and then when you get back out on the road, kick the generater on and charge the batteries up.
So that'll be automated.
Yeah, no driver wouldn't need to do a thing.
That's nice. Yeah, that's very cool. So looking forward to seeing all that roll out. So big news in the industry with the acquisition of Meritor by Cummins, so there's a lot of questions surrounding that, and I personally missed it in the earnings call. I guess a question came out about that, but I missed it for some reason. And but so how does that affect your supply chain supply of them, because your e-axles in the Hypertruck ERX or Meritor?
Yeah.
So first question is what does that look like moving forward, long term, or is everything good with that? Then I guess like a follow up will be, what are your thoughts overall on that Cummins acquisition, as you're a competitor, right, to Cummins, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, so on the first point of it, so in terms of the acquisition, the day following the acquisition, we had discussions with Cummins, and they were very supportive and expressed no issues with continuity of supply. These e-axles are going to be still available at Hyliion. We have the supply agreement in place with Meritor, and that'll just carry forward even though it's under new ownership. With Cummins, though, I mean, Meritor is a fantastic company. Cummins is also a fantastic company. Cummins is experts in supply chain and sourcing and everything. They also have great relationships with the OEMs. And so I see this just as, a continuation of what we're doing. We used to be buying it through Meritor. Now it'll go through Cummins. I don't see it as a massive change.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all industries go through consolidation, and it happens. But and it looks like you're well positioned with a couple members on your board over Meritor. Probably helps to keep your supply chain intact, having former CEO of
so Jay Craig joined our board, former CEO of Meritor, fantastic gentleman. And then also we announced on the earnings call, Sherry Lance joined Hyliion as our chief strategy officer. Before this, she was actually the chief strategy officer at Meritor as well, and she's also was coming from TE Connectivity, which is big in the connectors and electronics world.
There you go. So it's good to have the relationships within the industry as well to
absolutely
keep everything going. Okay, so another investor community that's that I'm connected to as well is Ryan from the Independent Investor. So he and I do live streams with him and stuff. But he's when I was beginning to do research in SPACs and started interviewing you, and he really dug in. He had never invested into a SPAC company that came public via SPAC, but he dug in and became an investor in Hyliion. And so I gave him the opportunity to submit a question,
Sure.
and then one from his community as well. So this one is from him. It was the topic's over about OEM hubs, and he asked what progress has been made towards OEM hub integration, as this a critical component to fleet adoption. Can you share any progress along those lines of, because we know Peterbilt is in a pipeline, and is there progress moving towards having, because I know the hybrid.
We've installed on every OEM.
Yes, what I'm saying, you're good with that, but now with this, you're going to have to make the connections to get in with the OEMs, right? So
So no, we've got relationships with all the OEMs as mentioned on the hybrid. The main OEMs we've installed on all their vehicles. The Hypertruck we decided to strategically launch with an OEM, right? Because we looked at it and said if we try to go do every vehicle all at once, we're never going to get anything to market. So we said Peterbilt, fantastic truck, great team to work with. They're also located up in Denton, Texas, so not too far away, which is great. We're launching on that powertrain. And I think the other part of this question is how does this progress over time, right? And our goal is to be OEM agnostic. So it's a solution that you can get on a Peterbilt or on other chassis as well long term. One of our big goals is ultimately get this technology installed on the line because that just makes it more efficient, easier to get the vehicles out there. So ultimately what the OEMs want to see, and it's not unique to Hyliion, it's true of every product, is what's that customer demand there that's going to be able to allow the OEM confidence that they should go change their manufacturing process in order to incorporate a new powertrain. And so as you're seeing these fleets make these commitments to us, whether it be orders or reservations, that's the confidence that the OEMs want to see in terms of, is this a technology they would want to pull onto the line?
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense. Sounds like really just keeping the main thing be the main thing, which is get it to production.
Get it out there, get fleets buying it.
Work through if there are any issues along the way, it makes sense to me. Of course, I'm a simple man anyway, so, that's the way I approach things too, grow and add on as you go. So that makes a lot of sense. His community asked about, which it essentially was answered in your earnings call. It was the lead up to, because you're a public company, so we can a lot of times get information, and like even on the website and stuff, you were doing a lot of hiring and a lot of this behind the scenes, and it seems, and you have always been very positive about the fleet interests and all those kinds of things. So that was this question, but I think this got answered in the earnings. But it was why are you so bullish? And then you were doing all this hiring, but a lot of it was answered. What do you think?
Yeah. So step one is the technology, the product makes a tremendous amount of sense to us, right? So that's first. But then the real thing is, does it make sense to the fleets? And the feedback that we get from fleets is fantastic. Our COO, Dennis, he usually looks, when a fleet's out for a ride and drive, when they get back, what's their facial expression when they get out of the truck, right?
They're already smiling, right?
And people are grinning ear to ear, right? They're thrilled with the technology, with the truck, the lack of range anxiety, the lack of infrastructure need to be put out there. That's the feedback we've been hearing from fleets, and that's what gives us the confidence that, this is going to make sense for their applications.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Next question is about government incentives and subsidies, because someone brought up that there's a program here in Texas that I didn't know about, but I guess a lot of state Texas emissions reduction plan, and then of course there's the California HVIP, which, but I guess so. The question is do you hope to get through, get to production, and then get some of these things implemented, or do you see the Hypertruck ERX being a candidate for these?
Yeah, so definitely see it being a candidate for them, and we're following it closely. What are the regulatory
Specs.
bodies doing? in order to mandate clean air technology. So we've actually made some changes to the truck to kind of incorporate our solution into those. So ZEV credits, zero emission vehicles, ZEV credit. So our vehicle with that 75-mile range will qualify for a ZEV credit, and that's huge, right? Because for the OEMs now, that means that every truck that we're getting out there can be qualifying for those credits, as well as there's a new mandate coming out, which is actually the Advanced Clean Fleet Rule, which is also going to put mandates on the fleets that they need to comply with certain regulations.
Is that federal or
I believe that's CARB, the fleet rule. And then the states that are saying they're going to follow CARB would also be part of that.
Gotcha.
But with that one, it's looking like we're going to qualify for the ZEV credit in that as well, and how it's written today. So I mean, these are huge things to enable fleets to qualify with what's getting mandated, as well as the OEMs being able to achieve it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it'll be interesting to follow that progress, and hopefully guys are able to.
And more is coming forward, right? I mean, I think we're just seeing the beginning of the mandates coming out on electric vehicles, clean energy vehicles, and we're watching it closely to make sure that we're in the right seat to be able to take advantage of them.
Very good. Second to the last question here. Listen, the investor community wants you to take over the world today, okay? So
we're trying.
they want everything now. But this one came from my Patreon community, and it was essentially about your maybe hopes and goals to international expansion. Is that something that you thought about? Which, I mean...
Absolutely.
Hope so, right?
Yeah, and the interest, we've already received a lot of interest from fleets overseas.
Oh, wow.
One of the things we've had to really assess and look at is how do we want to go about international expansion, though? Like if we tried to do it right now, it's kind of like going back to what we said earlier about trying to launch with all the OEMs. It wouldn't be successful, right? And so the way we're approaching the international space is the interest is there. We see it as a right technology for that area. But we got to get the product deployed and launched in the U.S. first, and then we can look at tackling a different territory.
Right, because a lot of the European countries, they're already so far ahead in the move towards a cleaner energy. So I'm sure probably wouldn't be hard to break into it once you get it all hammered out, right?
The interest is there. Just got to get the trucks out there.
All right, love to hear it. Final question, and this one came from another community member, but this was already one question I also had was... and I think you answered it earlier, but will each council member in the Innovation Council get a demo unit? And then also, like these fleets that are placing orders, will they get a demo unit? And like, what are the parameters around who gets a demo unit?
Yeah,
if you can speak on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So to lay out the timeline first, right? So second half of 2022 is when we're going to start controlled fleet trials. And then as we shared, we're going to carry those into 23 and continue to expand these fleet trials. That's really what we're talking about, these demos. Now, these aren't us handing the keys over and saying, hey, this is now your truck. It's still owned by Hyliion, but we're letting fleets actually run it in their operations, let them experience it. And ultimately, we see that as part of the sales cycle, right? If you get to use the truck and see it firsthand, you get to know, what works and are there things that don't work that, Hyliion can go improve upon. And so all the Hypertruck Innovation Council members have committed that they will be part of that demo program.
How many is there in that?
I believe there's 11 fleets, if I'm not mistaken. And then we also see that some of these new fleets that we're pulling forward are also going to be part of that as well. And then, our plan is we'll carry these demos, these fleet trials forward, right? It's not just a one and done thing. That'll always be part of the sales cycle, even once we're into, commercialization.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's new technology. You're not really going to necessarily buy it unless you try it, right? So, makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been fantastic. I don't want to take too much of your time. It's been an awesome experience. Number one, like I said, coming here and having an open invitation. So appreciate appreciate you having me, being cordial, and taking me around, answering all my questions. It's been a great time.
No, thanks for coming in, and hopefully you're walking away realizing why we're so excited. I mean, the truck speaks for itself, and hopefully we can share more of that with the investor community and get people more excited.
Absolutely. Well, looking forward to it. We'll have to do a follow-up at some point again.
Absolutely.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.